Welcome to the Private Lenders Podcast with your hosts from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the show. We appreciate it. Today we are talking about the concept of going deep instead of wide. And I'll tell you why this is coming up now. Mainly because we're guilty of it ourselves. And I'll tell you what I mean about the deep and wide thing. So this came up in conversation with our business partners who came on years ago to expand into other markets, into other geographic regions. And currently we lend in 6 states plus now North Carolina. So 7 states, basically all of the mid-Atlantic region, which is very large, both in terms of geographic area and population. It's a big ass lending territory for a portfolio of 50 million bucks. It's, to be perfectly honest, way bigger than it needs to be. You could pick one of our geographic markets like DC metro area. And if you were deep enough, you could do 50 million bucks right there. And that was the conversation that we're having currently with our business partners in how we're working to go deeper and not any wider.
Yeah. And what we mean by that is we've always been very, very good about going wide, meaning hitting massively marketing to everybody, lots of people, all real estate professionals, all real estate investors. Yeah, maybe some brokers, agents, things like that. But real estate investors, people focused on real estate investing. And we have obviously a gigantic email list, and we do tons of digital marketing, online marketing, things like that. But over the past few years, we've lost direct connections with one-off relationships, right? Like sometimes, and I think a lot of people do that. They take that for granted, right? Early on in business, they're going to RIA groups regularly or meetup groups regularly. They're going to every property themselves personally, meeting borrowers, creating relationships, going out to dinners, happy hours, lunch and learns. Hey, come to my office and let's meet, right? Like we were so good about that for forever. And there's, been ups and downs with that throughout, but we sat back and we're thinking about that the other day. And it's like, we're missing out on a lot of opportunities just because we don't have that ongoing, real physical friendship relationship with some of our borrowers like we did in the past, just because, we've been busy, right? Like we can blame it on that if you want to. And again, this wasn't necessarily hey, we have a lack of production issue. That really wasn't what it was. Our productions has kind of always stayed the same, if not gone up. But it is if you're, some of our partners in our other offices are still kind of on the growth phase, and their metrics is down a little bit, or their lead flow is down. And quite honestly, our lead flow is down. But again, the lead flow is lower. There are less leads out there. But again, our conversion rates are higher, and we're still closing the same amount of deals. But we do believe that we're leaving stuff on the table by not having, that physical interaction and the relationship that we did have years back.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I think we're a little light on repeat borrowers, and we still have a good amount of them. Probably we've always used the metric of every month about half of our borrowers should be repeat people and half new. And we're probably, I haven't looked at the exact numbers, but we're likely in that ballpark. I think some of our business have been in the game 5 years or 3 to 5 years, are not quite there yet because it does take time to build up that client base. But that's a pretty good goal. And let's talk about the extremes real quick on either end, just to paint the picture, and we'll keep diving into this topic. So on one end, on one extreme, I know a couple people in the inner circle and who have been in the inner circle who don't do any marketing at all. They have, 20, 25 people that they lend to, and that's it. Whenever these people need a deal, they're not marketing publicly. They hit up their lender and they're like, oh, here's what I'm working on. It's going to be here. Here's the numbers. And then they fund the deal. And that's the extent of this lender's marketing strategy, if you want to call it that. But he's obviously very, very good in the relationship capital, which I've heard the term people use. So he's really friends with these borrowers, and they spend time together, hang out, might even vacation together, that kind of stuff. And that's really on one extreme. A lot of lenders aren't going that deep with their relationships. But then on the other side of things, if you're just talking about a straight web marketing company where you are bringing in tons of leads and inquiries, you got web apps, texts, phone calls coming in all throughout the day, and you're throwing out loan quotes and, take it or leave it and whatever. If you want it, we'll close your deal and move on. And that's kind of the extent of the relationship, right? Like, we're going to market everything we can online and not take that relationship anywhere further. And then the right idea has got to be, like in most cases, somewhere in the middle, where you do have a solid web marketing campaign for your company to bring in potential new clients, new deals, opportunities. And at the same time, you do put effort and time and resources into going deep with your top people, with your really good borrowers. And, creating that blend and really maximizing both of those efforts is exactly what we're trying to get better at right now.
Absolutely. And, we've been using the word seasons recently, like different seasons inside our business. And I think, and I'm going to go through some of the seasons that we've had over the years. And I think everybody, no matter what part of their journey they're in, can relate to this, because different people are in different seasons. So like season 1 was like startup mode for us. And startup mode was like, you better get your butt out of your office or your house and go meet as many people as possible. Do your inspections, do your evaluations in person, go speak at meetup groups, go to every auction, get in front of real estate investors any way you can and create relationships. And as you are creating relationships, you're also, using some of that to create content and, your email database and social media marketing with that content, right? Bring a camera. It's the easiest thing you can do is bring a camera and document, a property, before and after pictures, turn it into a case study, a testimony, whatever you want to do. So we would do that in season 1. And then that built our database. Like we didn't buy lists, or we didn't, have a list to start with, really, maybe a few hundred people here and there, but like nothing major. So like we'd go out and we get business cards, or someone come to our website and fill out a loan application, and they'd go into our email database. And that's what helped grow to, a very large email database by doing that over and over and over. And like that season lasted for, a pretty, long time of like growth, startup mode, grind, create relationships, get all their contact information, and then email them over and over and over regularly, have them see you all over social, plus meeting them, being very present at those meetup groups that we're at. And then all of a sudden you kind of turn into a local celebrity in your market because people know you, right? You're out there, shaking hands, kissing babies, meeting people at real estate investor groups. But then on the other side, they're seeing you on social media, and they're getting your emails, and they're seeing you on Facebook and Instagram and things like that locally. And then, there was also a point in our business. And again, we've never really thought through our different seasons or labeled them, but let's just call this season 2. There was a point, years later in our business where like we stopped being proactive. I don't want to say proactive, but like we got inundated with leads, right? We'd send out emails and we just get tons and tons and tons and tons of leads over and over and over. And like the marketing machine was full cycle. And we were just, be inundated of deals that we couldn't even handle, like leads. I'm not saying deals, but leads we couldn't handle because the phones were blowing up, emails blowing up, text message, loan applications were blowing up. And it's like, oh crap, I'm in a different spot. Like I can't go to this real estate investment club tonight. I can't go do this physical inspection because I'm inundated with leads. It isn't the goal to have, as much business as you can handle. So, as that marketing machine was working, all the hard work was working and tons of leads, we couldn't handle it. And, at one point we hired, we had multiple sales guys and business development people kind of running those leads. We had some outside brokers that we would help, that would refer leads to as well. And they would run them for us and handle them, because that was just the season that we were in. Like we couldn't handle the leads. And I'll never forget, like call that season 2, right? Like, and we had one point, we had a full-time employee in our office that was just literally running lead after lead after lead after lead, like with me, because I couldn't handle them all myself. And a guy named Tony was running them. And, he had a stand-up desk in his office, one of those adjustable desks that went up and down. And like, he would just stand up and put his headset on, and he was on the phone. Like, couldn't even talk to him throughout the day because he was just banging out call after call after call after call. And then all of a sudden he'd be like, yep, this is a good one. Jason, let's review this. Let's see if we can make this deal work. Right. And like, that was a good season. That was a good spot to be in. Right. And then I'll never forget, like a few years after institutional capital came in, and, all those leads, like before, is like, oh, you have capital? Cool, let's do a deal. Oh, you have this? You do. I know you. Like you guys are branded everywhere. As soon as institutional capital came in, that was kind of another season where all of a sudden there was cheaper capital, there was higher leverage, there was more players in town, there was other opportunities. And, I'll never forget, we were like, hey, Tony, like, we got to start taking this back to the streets, and we got to start, we're already so wide. Let's get deep again. Right. Because, there's lots of players in town. There's tons of liquidity in this space. Like, think about 8 years ago, there was tons of liquidity in this space. So what do we do to be, a differentiator from everybody else, right? Let's go build relationships, right? Because Rock Capital might have a better product than us, but they certainly don't have more know-it-all about this industry, or especially about the local market, than any of us in our office does, right? They're a tech-based company out of California, and yes, they have a good product, but what they don't have is they don't have us. They don't have the experience. They don't have the local knowledge. So let's go sell that. Let's go sell, how we can work with some of these investors with speed and credibility and things like that. So, we went back to the streets, and we invited people into the office, and we would do lunch and learns, and we ramped back up our meetup group. And that was just a different season that we were in. So again, I think wide and deep are both equally important. And it just depends on kind of what season you're inside your business, and what you want to focus on right now. And we've been going wide for so long, and not that we're not going to continue to go wide. I just don't think we're going to go wider. I think we're going to continue to stay wide, but at the same time, we're going to try to go deeper with some of these real estate investors. One more quick thing, since I'm ranting, and I'm sure Chris wants to jump in as well, is one of the things we were thinking about is, we've done dozens and dozens of loans for real estate investors. Some investors, 100 loans over the years. And, we don't talk to them that much anymore, right? Like, we just haven't done much business for them. They can get cheaper terms, maybe higher leverage, and that's fine, right? They either outgrew our program or just wasn't a good fit. They're using institutional capital, no problem. We replace them with another investor. But the reason they're not reaching out is like, I don't want to call Jason. If I call Jason, he's going to tell me I'm going to need 30% down, and his terms are going to be higher than I'm already getting, right? So they're just disregarding calling us. Not that we're not still tight, not that we can't text, call, see each other, right? It's nothing to do with that. It's just they're going to need more. But if I can go deep with them, I strongly feel that I could still get a few deals out of them a month just by proper scripting and communicating a relationship. And I'll give you an example. Let's use like the name Nick, fake person. Be like, I see him at a meetup group. I see him at a local event. I see him somewhere, right? Invite him to lunch. Be like, hey, Nick, I know you got really good things going on with whatever, Lima 1 right now, and they're giving you cheaper terms. That being said, like, you got a deal that really needs to close quick, or you have a deal that's a little bit more creative. Maybe it has a big wholesale fee, or maybe it's a deal that like you're just struggling to get through with them. Give me a call, man. I'll do whatever I can to make this thing work. Yeah, I know you might need a little bit more cash than you want to bring into the deal, but like, we'll close quick. It'll be a very easy transaction. You've worked with us before. We'll take care of you. And personally, I'll do whatever I can, to make sure I can work with you on terms and make the deal work, something like that. So I think by just kind of creating a relationship with them again, there's ways to go deep, like really deep. And in essence, like, have them send us a deal here and there, because the guys that are doing 40 deals a year, like, that's not our target client anyways. Like,
Right.
we're not going to get 40 deals out of them a year, but if we can get 2 or 4 or 6 a year, that's great. And like, that's the goal. So I think by going deeper with a lot of the relationships that we already have, I mean, all I got to do is pick up the phone and call them, or go out and see them, or whatever the case is. We believe, and this has already happened over the last few months. We're just kind of sharing with you this publicly now because it's working, is, hey, spend that time and try to get a deal here and there from somebody that you might not have if you didn't put in the heavy lifting.
Yeah, I mean, that said a lot of it. I think you just covered the majority of the points for sure. Just one thing I want to, explain a little bit further, especially when it comes to, I remember back in the season where you mentioned the institutional money came out, and they came out cheap, and they came out high leverage, and they're still around. And so the private lenders using private capital, their own or investor money, there's some ways in which you just can't compete with that. And I'm going to tell you how it ties into the going deep with relationships thing. we got very used to what we call the plan B scripting. Like it used to be about the fact that we can't compete with the loan quotes that the institutional guys put out in terms of price. But now everyone's kind of the same price with higher rates. It's really about leverage. And so when you circle back with somebody you've lent to a few years ago and you know they're a good investor doing deals and you want to talk about it, their initial thing is going to be like, well, here's what I'm getting right now. Can you beat it? And you need to work around that, because the reality is you can't beat Kiavi's leverage unless you want to lose money on your defaults. No one can. And private lenders, the business model is not to lose money on any loans. Kiavi's might be based on their loan quotes. So you can't win on that. You're not necessarily going to be any more any cheaper. You'll probably be about the same. So the plan B scripting is like, look, when that money doesn't work out on a particular deal for whatever reason, oftentimes it's timing. How fast can you get to the closing table? Or maybe there's some weird thing about the property or the borrower themselves that's going to not work with that kind of bank money. And you do get, like Jason said, we don't need their 40 deals a year, but we want their 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. And you can easily work that scripting into conversation when you circle back with these borrowers in an effort to go deeper with them on a business relationship. And it's win-win. You know, you're providing a need for them when it does pop up, and it will pop up, and you're getting some more deals from a great local client. So works for everybody.
That just came up on a deal that came in today that we are closing Friday, where a repeat borrower that we don't do a lot of deals for, every once in a while, they reached out. They were supposed to close today. They have 700 credit score qualities. We're supposed to close yesterday. They have 700 credit score borrower, things like that. A lot of cash. They were getting cheaper or higher leverage. I don't know who the other lender was. I didn't ask. I didn't actually really care at that point. I just wanted to get this thing going. And I wasn't, I asked them why they, didn't close. And it was because there was a large wholesale fee on it. And they cap wholesale fees. A lot of these institutional lenders cap wholesale fees. There's a lot of things that institutional lenders, because they're banking in tech, not necessarily like they're not real estate investors backgrounds, they're banking in tech backgrounds. So a lot of them follow requirements that are kind of stupid requirements. You would think if you're no real estate investing, but like that's just what they do, right? And they have a lot of requirements related to credit and wholesale fees and experience levels and CLTV and whatever it is. This particular one had too high of a wholesale fee. Doesn't affect us at all a bit, but they couldn't do it because the wholesale fee, the wholesaler who was wholesaling this property was charging too much, right? So came to me, said, hey, I got to close this thing as soon as possible. Can we close Friday? And I was like, let's close Monday. Like, it would be ideal. And it's just like, hey, listen, I got to close this thing on Friday or I'm going to lose the deal. I'm scheduled at 3 p.m. And this is between last night and this morning. I was like, I'll make it work. I'll drop everything. I'll rush it. I'll get it done. They didn't even talk about how much we can lend. We ended up lending significantly less than they were originally quoted, but they had the extra cash. Instead of losing a good opportunity, they're willing to put up an extra $50,000 for the loan. We're doing a 260 loan, right? Originally, I think they were able to get 310. We're doing 260. That's where we're comfortable lending, right? And I told them that. And it's like, lose the deal, put up the extra $50,000, use us, save the day type of thing. And it worked. They had the extra cash anyways. So that's just, some, like, I know this is like crazy to say publicly, but like that happens every week. It literally in our office happens every week. Like we're doing one extra deal a week just in that exact situation.
Good stuff, guys. Thanks for checking out the show. If you're missing the deep part, focus on that, going deeper. And if you're missing on the marketing, focus on going wide. And the combination is going to be the best business model for lending possible. We'll see you here next time on the Private Lenders Podcast when we put out the next episode. And until then, we'll see you inside hardmoneymastermind.com.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast. Please note that the opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not intended for legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, accounting, and financial professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 free community for new and experienced private and hard money lenders.